I'm watching a fucking bloodbath out there as generative AI comes for one industry after another. You guys are probably seeing it like customer service reps, software developers, graphic designers. These jobs are seriously under threat as AI comes in and kind of just kicks over the whole table in our careers and our workplaces and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what I see going on out there. Manoj, thanks a lot for setting that up. I see companies like yours and like mine, like Earl's and Shane's, we're building lifeboats for people to try to figure out, where to go from here. And it's going to require a lot of like upskilling, AI adoption, and integrating with these things to try to figure them out. And so I'm going to go through some of that kind of stuff here today. I got to thank Julian for putting together this like 6 AI person masterclass for you all. I think it's a pretty interesting time to do that. We've got a lot of different perspectives here, and there's a lot of experts in this room. I'm going to talk a little bit more about community and the role that it's going to play as we kind of embrace all these tools and technologies and techniques and stuff like that along the way. Oh, by the way, I'm a genius too. I work at the Google News Initiative in their AI for Journalism lab. I have 65 journalists right now that are representing 15 newsrooms that are on a 6-month journey of trying to figure out AI. Not necessarily on the journalistic side, but let's call it the back of the house side. Subscriber growth, audience reach, competitive analysis, research, all the things that it takes to run a successful news operation these days. I also started a company called The Upgrade.ai. Shane's an instructor there. He recently launched the AI Upgrade for sales leaders. I've run 6 cohorts of a certification program called AI Upgrade for creative professionals. This isn't just artists, it's marketing managers, it's writers, it's coders, it's anyone who makes something from nothing. Those jobs are about to change. And in particular, if there's a correct and right verifiable answer that you produce for your job, you better watch out, because those are the jobs AI is coming for first. We were told when we were kids, become a lawyer, become a doctor, software developer, skip the drivers and factory worker jobs. Those ones are going away. All us white collar workers, info workers will be safe. Turns out the opposite is true. The first place we're seeing big encroachments is in these white-collar jobs where there is a right answer. A couple things stuck out, some quotes recently. Microsoft CEO a month ago said 25% of our production code has been written by AI. That's pretty crazy. It's a big stat. 25% of Microsoft's production code right now has been written by AIs. Sam Altman, the very next week, referring to that comment, said, talking about the percentage of code that AI writes is not that useful. I'll tell you, most of our important functions today are written by AI. So for Sam, it's 80% of the most effective, powerful things he does, those things are being written by AI today. So we're not talking about the future, we are talking about right now. Another thing I wanted to mention too that came up while Manoj was talking, Sam also said a couple weeks ago, he said he's really enjoying looking over people's shoulders right now to see how they're using AI, and he's particularly interested in how different generations are using it. So he said older people are using it as a Google replacement. Middle-aged people are using it as a life coach, life decision maker for everything. He said 20s and 30s-year-olds will not make a life decision without consulting AIs first. Everything from how to break up with their girlfriend, what type of career they should explore, what the best school for this type of thing is. Every single decision being run through AI. Not to make the decisions, as you said, maybe, but to inform the array of possibilities that are presented and just to explore those ideas and to really consider the implications, and I think then make a decision either based on intuition or belief in oneself. And then he said finally that the youngest people are using AI as an operating system for life, tying all the bits and bobs together and recycling and remixing them through these different models. And I think that you're performing one age bracket down from where you're at. You're definitely using it in this middle way as a life decision maker, life advisor, and guide. And I'm trying to use it one level down too, where I'm tying, even in the younger age, where I'm trying to tie all these different systems together through APIs, Python scripts, knowledge bases, assistants, agents, and this type of thing. And so I thought that's an interesting lens to look through right now. I wanted to give a shout out to Shane. Shane, good job yesterday, man. You really crushed it. I really enjoyed your presentation a lot. He talked about that Iron Man suit that he's building, and then he showed us a bunch of the augmentations that he had built to do discovery, coaching, proposal generation, objection handling. I mean, you've got quite the group of assistants and agents there, and I thought that was pretty awesome. So at the core of what Shane's got is he's built this second brain. Manoj calls it Brain Butler. Essentially, I build a knowledge base of, as I said, it starts with me, and I do concentric circles out from there. So when I first started getting into AI, I was like, rewrite my resume, update my content from my website. Here's some articles and transcripts of me giving keynotes back in the day. Let's turn those into text. And I started to build a knowledge base of these documents that kind of gave the baby computer brain an idea of who it was dealing with in terms of my values, my perspectives, my goals, experience, my connections. In fact, I think a low-hanging fruit for everybody in this room I'd love to see you give a try to is set up a custom assistant, either on GPT, in Google they're called gems, in Microsoft they're called agents, confusingly enough. But all an assistant is a system prompt plus a knowledge base. A system prompt can be as simple as you write for me, and a knowledge base can be as simple as your resume. So just go to ChatGPT, make a free account, say make custom GPT, tell it what you want it to do, think for me, write for me, do whatever. Don't overcomplicate it. Export your LinkedIn as a PDF, attach it, hit save. Start asking it questions. You'll have gone from the whole wide world of generalized AI slop with those 5 clicks into like a very focused 10% of the depth of the AI knowledge, the 1,000 miles deep that Manoj was talking about. It's quite incredible, you know, like think about yourself as a Venn diagram and the school you went to and the era and where you live and the jobs you've held all overlapping. And when you really drill down into that middle area, that's you on one level. And you don't need a lot of information to tell the AI how to get there. Now, that being said, this is a very iterative approach, and this is the exciting part about it, right? So we can now go click edit on that same assistant. We can maybe add a writing style guide. One of my favorite things to do is just point a bunch of emails, or sometimes I even export my text messages or different things. You have to start to think about, like, people say data's the new gold mine, or data's the, well, what data for you is gold? Start to think about that, find it, bring it together, clean it up, feed it into some of these assistants, and watch like some of the magic that starts to come out. So the things that I like to do are, I feed it a bunch of stuff I've written. I say, I'm hiring a new intern next week. They're gonna do all my writing for me. Analyze all this stuff and make a ghost writing style guide for my intern, so make sure that everything that comes out of their thing is exactly the way I would write it. I'm gonna set that one aside. Then, one of my favorite things to do, the best way for me to interact with AIs right now is via my voice. I love recording and transcribing. Such a great way to get things out of yourself or out of other people and into the AIs. So then I might just like have a little rant or have someone interview me, record myself, 5 minutes, whatever, right? Feed it, transcribe it, feed it to the AI and say something like, I'm also gonna give that intern a worldview and perspectives document so that it knows how I think, what I value, where I'm coming from. So now our little assistant has access to 3 documents. It's got our LinkedIn, it's got our writing style guide, it's got our worldview and perspectives document. I also export the endorsements from my LinkedIn and other places, because what you say about yourself is one thing, but how much more valuable is what everybody else says about you? It shows the computer brain you from various perspectives. So I start to just work my way through this world of personal data that I can use to give this thing depth. Over time, it is possible to have these, tools quote direct childhood stories or excerpts from meetings or other things, your books even, books are a gold mine. Attaching your books to any sort of assistant, just think of the rich amount of depth and data you're given that intelligence about who you are and what you care about. Assistants. So I was talking to you a little bit about the assistants and the very basic ones. You write for me, attach a style guide. Some of the geeks in this room, I wanted to give you another tool that's like my favorite that doesn't come up very often. I mentioned to the guy from PAX, hey, do you know Daniel Miesler, the security professional? Hey, I get some nods out there. All right. Daniel Miesler, I'm so hip to what this guy's doing right now. He's built this community-maintained, open-source prompting framework that is gold. You showed your your really cool prompt making assistant, an AI that writes new prompts, that's awesome. You can take that little one you write for me and stick it in Manuj's prompt upgrader. You're going to get a much better writing prompt. But now imagine tapping into 12,000 people that are a part of Daniel Miessler's open source community that maintains the you write for me prompt. I go to his thing. Actually, it's updated automatically in the background on my computer every day. I have hundreds of security-based and career assistant-based, community-maintained prompts. Some of these things are like 1,500 lines of code as a markdown file that's a single prompt. I mean, they're very, very complicated and fascinating. So check out Daniel Miessler's open source prompting framework called Fabric. It's amazing. You can install it in half an hour. It also integrates with Ollama. Ollama is an open source tool for downloading models and running them on your machine. On my Mac right there, I'm running like 4 terabytes of LLMs, open source LLMs. And I use Daniel Miessler's project to interact with them. He also has another project called Telos. And it's the idea of making these markdown files that know us, that structured way of documenting ourselves for these machines so that they can understand us and prioritize different things. So between this open source prompting framework Fabric and this other project he's got called Telos, we have a lot of the open source infrastructure to build really powerful assistants and agents right out of the box. Specifically, you security guys, check out Fabric. Half the prompts he wrote are like very technical, very easily usable prompts, and you can steal them, use them, remix them. I take those prompts and I build assistants out of them. So I take one of his prompts, I modify it to my specific needs, and then I build either a gem or a custom GPT, and they're quite amazing. I said that assistants are just a system prompt plus a knowledge base. Well, what are agents then? Agents are assistants tied together, more or less. You know, something initiates a process, an assistant does its job using a knowledge base and some system prompts. It takes those results, it passes them to the next assistant. In my case, I've built a tool called WhisperForge. Would you grab me a water, Shane? There's one right there, actually. I built this tool called WhisperForge. Thanks.
That'll work. You got water coming everywhere. You don't have insurance for that, right?
So I told you I love transcriptions and that they're the best way to get things out of my head and heart into the world. So I built this tool called WhisperForge that takes my transcriptions or takes my audio files and sends them off to the Whisper API from OpenAI for transcription, receives them back. Then it starts to run through a series. It's an agent that runs through a series of assistants. A few of the assistants have these Daniel Miessler prompts at their core. The first one's like, okay, I got back a transcription. First one is Wisdom Expander. It looks for the key ideas, the best quotes, all the proper nouns that you mentioned, like people's names, company names, things like that, looks up a URL for them, and then starts to synthesize the quotes, ideas, and links into analysis. Then the agent passes the transcript and the wisdom expanded to an outline generator. Creates an outline with H1s, H2s, H3s, starts to thread links into the whole thing. Then the agent passes the outline, the wisdom, and the transcript to a social media editor, social media content creator, an image prompter that makes a bunch of images that represent the key ideas in that thing, and then it creates a blog post, an article. I don't call it a blog post, I call it a 1,250-word feature-length article for either New Yorker or Wired, because it does a better job than if I just tell it to write a blog post. Then I realized this thing gets way better when it's recursive one time. So I put an editor in there that just thrashes the whole thing, gives it 50% revision, and pops it back to the beginning of the agentic process, where it runs through again. Now the editor's notes are passed through with the transcript, with the outline, with the wisdom, into social media content, image prompts, and the blog post in the end. So this is my little agentic system called WhisperForge. You know, I have in my notes here that I wanted to call out to Mike at Nexus in the back yesterday. He said something really important. He was up here and it was just a little tiny thing. A lot of you guys might have missed it, but we were talking about AIs and jobs, and he was like, yo, we got that. He's like, all my customer service people, they're pretty much just human tenders, essentially. He's like, when a ticket comes in, we triage it, we go find the answer. I think you call it remediation. You give them a remediation button. Would you just shout out real quick the little system that you guys built for your customer support people, please? What's that, bro? Yeah, Sofec. Just tell us how it works real quick if I missed some of it. I thought it was pretty... Of everyone I heard yesterday, I feel like this guy's company has their head most wrapped around AI.
So we've done a lot of AI work, but one we've done on our improvement desk is, again, we've automated the ticket process except for where it touches the customer. Because we're all in the customer service industry, and we need to be customer service first. And you could do AI and customer service at the same time.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. You know, also, I came up to tell you last night that I thought that was a pretty important little thing that you dropped. And I sat there for a little while and we listened, and maybe I'll save more of the explanation for a second, but he was talking about other ways they're using AI inside their organization, and we hit on another really novel way. He's got a bunch of junior interns, and he's lined them up with a bunch of vibe coding tools. And he's having, and correct me at the end if I'm wrong or whatever, but he's got his senior people writing unit tests, evals, and testing frameworks that pretty much say, keep iterating my intern's code until it passes all of these tests, and then once it passes all of these tests, then bring it over into deployment. And I think that's a really fascinating way to integrate vibe coding, the kind of latest and greatest, trendy kind of thing when it comes to AI, into a production code business like you're doing. And I'll get into that a little bit again in a second. So yesterday you guys saw me maybe running around up here doing all sorts of stuff, and maybe you weren't sure exactly what I was doing. We got a little media making table up here. But I've been running a test here using this WhisperForge tool, and I built Julian a fucking goldmine, man. I recorded every single session yesterday, and in real time was running it through WhisperForge, transcribing it, expanding the wisdom, making outlines, social media content, blog posts, all this kind of stuff. So I gave him back at the end of the day a knowledge base. It's called like Julian's Channel Next 2025 knowledge base. And it's got everyone's talks, all the stuff, all the assets built out. And that's quite amazing because like by the end of the day when I closed my laptop, all that shit was done and ready to go, shared with his team who's making content, all these channels. But there's something deeper going on too, and that's like the unlocking of new human capabilities. And what I mean here, I know it sounds a little hyperbolic, but what would you have had to do before yesterday to synthesize all the knowledge that is passed in a room like this? Like, you guys are the zeitgeist of the industry. And what was shared here from the stage yesterday when taken in aggregate and analyzed with meta tools represents where we're going as a group, where this industry is going, where the future is going, right? So Julia and I sat down this morning and we started asking yesterday questions. We're like, what were the top 5 themes that emerged across all of these speakers? Or thread together the 4 AI talks that happened yesterday so I can give my people a cohesive message. And we realized you would have had to hire a journalist per session to record, transcribe, write all that content, synthesize it, but then you'd have to get all those journalists together at the end of the day and get them talking and agreeing to some stuff, actually sharing their info, making some analysis, i.e. it would have been impossible. We don't have 15 journalists on this team. We don't have the ability to synthesize all that stuff and then write that type of content. So we are able to see and ask this thing questions that have not been possible before. And, I've been joking, it's like, God came down from the mountain and gave us these tools, but we don't even know what to do with them yet. We have to live with them for a while before our brains really start to unlock and we figure out what's possible. And so I point to this example, like, I don't even know what I want to ask to that database next, but I know that there's gold in there and I know that there's analysis to be done. In fact, I've got this hunch that maybe it reinvigorates the whole conference world in some ways, tools like this. Like, maybe we come together to make community knowledge. And out from that come some sort of reports or tools or something that the world needs, or whatever. And so all of a sudden it starts making sense for us to spend the great resources to fly across the country and the world to come together to share ideas and mix and cross-pollinate, because we can reflect and analyze and share and repackage and go all content waterfall like Earl does on it at the end. I can take this keynote or any of these, the whole conference, and start to, I could set up a year's worth of podcasts, blog posts, deep analysis, links back and forth to you guys. All the content came from the stage yesterday, and sure, planted lots of seeds in our head, but other than that, a lot of the value dissipates. It just kind of blends off into the ether, especially the ability to make those meta-analysis and draw conclusions and connections. So that tool exists. I wanted to do a talk with no slides because it's a personal edge for me. I just thought I'd get up here and talk about what I care about and what I love. And so that's why I'm not demoing it, but I'd be happy to show you down there. Happy to send you a link. Me and Julian got some things we're cooking up with Shane and Manoj and the other folks. What an exciting time it is to be a geek. A lot of you are in this for the tech. Yeah, we've been successful. We've started businesses. Now sometimes we're salespeople, we're CEOs. But it's the coolest time ever to be a geek. There's very, very powerful tools available to us. Fire up your GitHub, check out Daniel Miesler's code repository. There's a lot of great stuff happening out there. And that brings me into this idea of vibe coding. And I mentioned how Michael's doing it at Nexus there, where he's lining up all his interns with these vibe coding tools and just letting them bang away on stuff and make all sorts of experiments and explorations, but through this framework that his senior developers put down where code's got to pass all these tests and compliances before it's even considered for production deployment. Well, I'm using vibe coding in a different way, and I haven't really shared this idea in public before, so bear with me as I stumble through it a bit, but I've watched in the last 3 months how we prototype and iterate things with our clients completely change. So, and it's happened two times significantly for me in the last couple months. Clients or partners come to me and they're like, I want a tool that does this. I want to analyze this hashtag, make some media analysis on it, surface some stories from it, and I need you to build it for me, whatever, right? The old model was I'd listen to that person, write down what they say, make a requirements document, make sure it was cool with them, go off, share it with my team, disseminate that info, build some interface prototypes, come back to them, share them. And by the time I delivered the product, usually, we realized that the person didn't ask for the right thing to begin with. They didn't really even know what they wanted when they asked. They just had an idea and they came to us, right? So then we burn money and cycles and energy. Think about the staff people who are like, I build all this cool shit for my work, but it never gets deployed. What kind of a demoralizing feeling is that? And then a lot of these tools could be super effective or powerful, but we actually never get to the finish line because of the process of going through this development process. Well, now, and it's happened a couple times for me recently, while I'm listening to the person on the phone, I'm jotting down their requirements, I'm recording bits and bobs, I head over into Lovable or V0 or N8N or Cursor or any of these really cool vibe coding tools that are out. And I start to just prototype what they're telling me and I show it back to them. And I'm like, yo, is this what you're talking about? Let's go click around the interface. And I'm dealing with marketing managers and CEOs who are trying to get products built. They're not thinking about UX interactions and hovers and how things go and user flows and stuff like this. And so now in a 1-hour call, I can present someone back 3 functional prototypes that represent exactly what came out of their mouth, and they can click on them. And I can be like, I'm going to talk to you in a week after you played with that, and you tell me if this is what you actually want. And so I'm seeing a significant change coming in how we as service providers meet the needs of our clients in terms of showing them back to them their ideas, iterating on that feedback before then, building something production styles. There's another thing about that too, and this kind of relates to some of the stuff you're building. You and I have been building Manoj, I'm talking to, we're building assistants and agents and stuff. I've started to use the vibe coding tools as my finishing school for all my assistants. So it's once you've got your system prompt and your knowledge base, and you've gotten the back and forth going of yeah, this thing is useful and valuable and I like it and this is good. You build it, you iterate on it, and you're like, this is good. Well, then I take those guys over into any vibe coding tool and I start to build an app, either my own personal app. It's just the same stuff, right? It's just, now it's what's an app in relation to an assistant? If an assistant is a system prompt plus a knowledge base, an app in this case is like a system plus a knowledge base plus a UI, or a system prompt plus a knowledge base plus a UI plus API integration to different other tools that can go out there and stuff like that. So I'm really hyped on this vibe coding stuff right now. Not just as a way to get the computer to write code for me, but as a whole new way of like reimagining how tools and software and stuff like that is built. Community. All right. I run the BC AI Industry Association out in British Columbia. This is like a 200 or so member organization representing the interests of companies that are exploring AI, people, projects, research labs, etc. This is a very, very useful experimental laboratory for me to grow and learn, not just for myself, but as a group of people. You know, there's way too much to learn right now about all this stuff. It's really changing fast. There's new shit coming out all the time. I find the only way to stay ahead is to form like a virtuous learning circle inside a community where you can go deep down rabbit holes, bring that research back to everybody else, and share that with them and get them hyped on it, and with the kind of promise that other people are doing the same thing and you're all kind of lifting each other up. And guess what, guys? That's what this is. That's what you guys already have with this community. This is not just an event, it's a community. You all get together a bunch of years in a row. Julian, I love his story. Dude got into mouse pads. As his entree into this world, he started making and selling mouse pads until China dropped the floor out. Then he told me a story of he ran catalogs, physical world catalogs, until the very first online store came to him and asked him to buy his catalog SKUs on a CD-ROM. And he's like, why the heck do you want that? You starting your own catalog? He's like, no, online store. And his business for a while became selling his SKUs on CD-ROM to these people to start online stores. And then this community grew from that. And a lot of you have been with Julian for a long, long time, you know, and he's cultivated great vibes and camaraderie here amongst this crew. And this is the type of thing that can buttress or stabilize us through this tidal wave, through this bloodbath, through these uncertain times. So I encourage you to lean on each other, form subgroups within this group, you know, people who are interested in security, people who are interested in AI and agents and stuff like that. This is very well the container you need to hold and develop your personal and company growth as it relates to AI. Now, I want to encourage you, again, like Manoj did, what can you do this week? Are you willing to take my challenge of like build an assistant today with a one-line system prompt and just a PDF document that says something about you? There's very low-hanging fruit. And I'll tell you one last thing that has revealed itself to me. I've understood this idea of compounding effort, much like compounding interest in the finance world. Through every smart conversation I have with AI, by taking the best of that and bringing it into my central knowledge base, and day by day adding to that, I've created a 10,000 tendril crystalline octopus of knowledge and wisdom that I can deploy at a moment's notice. As any new AI comes out, I can just skim the best off of my knowledge base, plug it in, and this thing is no longer a dumb tool, but a hyper, focused assistant that knows and thinks like me. So I would say there's low-hanging fruit. Take the daily challenge, build yourself an assistant, and then I got one more challenge for you. I call them, like daily mind dumps or something like that, but 5 minutes a day, just record stuff. I do it in the morning when I wake up. I just record my dreams, my to-do list for the day, what I didn't sleep well about or something. Just get it out of you, throw it into that little assistant that you just made that writes for you and knows who you are. And just be like, analyze my stuff and give me back a to-do list. And then, you've done that for a week and you're gonna have a knowledge base of a lot of very interesting things that matter specifically to you. So anyway, that is my kind of renegade take on AI. Thank you, Julian, for some time up here. And can we do Q&A? Where are we at with time? Do I got 1 minute left? Let's see. Any burning questions? Yeah, Mike.
A lot of the MSPs here are just on step one of their automation journey. In your opinion, where should they start and how should they go about it?
Yeah, I have a little formula that I use or whatever, but it's like, write down 3 bottlenecks in your company, write down 3 like blue sky things in your company, things would be awesome if you could do, then find which one's like a low-hanging fruit, assign a KPI to that thing, and 3 little metrics to test on, and then map out the workflow. So just, could be support in your case, or you find your bottlenecks, you find your blue skies, you pick one that's low-hanging, you assign a KPI on it so you can test over time, and then you start sprinting. Build a little sprint around that thing, report on the progress. Say like, we want to increase newsletter clicks, something like that. We want to build a content building automation to do so. We're going to send out 5 emails during our test period. So I think it's just lining up the ideas, things that hurt or things that you want to do that you can't, starting to map some numbers to those things, break down the workflows in the process. And then once you got that, it becomes pretty freaking obvious where AIs can assist along the way. And you often don't need fancy things from the get-go. You can start to pick away at that thing and learn along the way. And then once you've got something that like feels good, that's the time to really automate that or to spend some money on it or to, you know, lock it down, something like that. Yeah. Any other ones you really want to fire off? All right. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, Shane. Yeah.
You built a massive, very big, both AI association, like in BC overnight. Plus, you built a big AI meetup community. And I've watched you do this largely as a one-person show, running co-pilot, so to speak, with your AI. And could you just kind of share with us, like, some of your hacks or approaches to engaging a community en masse as a one-person show? Like, I think that's a really good. We're all building communities around our businesses, right? So
I got really lucky. From the very first day that I got shown AI, I got showed Midjourney first. And I went to the Midjourney Discord server, which is where it all took place at the time. And when I got there, I saw chaos. Just looked like the Matrix, like just stuff streaming past the screen, written in code. I really didn't know what it meant. And I wanted to dig in because I had just seen the power, but I didn't know how or where. And so that very day, you're allowed to make your own Discord server and then run the Midjourney bot on it. So I built the Discord server, threw the Midjourney bot on it, and then I invited all my connections from like the last 20 years in tech into that space. And so from the very get-go of my AI journey, it's been about like community and exploring things together. And I think that that's a big part of it is like, I'm truly trying to lift people up I'm going down my own rabbit holes. I'm bringing back the best of my knowledge. I'm sharing it in ways that I hopefully will lift people up. I try to talk more about other people than I do about myself the best I can. I try to form a strong opinion that's defendable and from my core. And, you know, I guess the last thing I will say, thank you for just being a little bit permissive. I gave you guys 5 minutes back of your clock earlier because you said you were behind, so now I'll just take two minutes of it, of it back. But it's back to that Venn diagram thing. It's like there's only one you, and that very unique part of you is the part that we want to amplify using this AI stuff. And so just getting really clear about that value that you offer to the world, who you are, what your perspective is, and leaning into that. I think more than ever, we're being invited to be very unique individuals as opposed to like vanilla conformists or whatever, because there's going to be a lot of that. That AI is going to be really good at giving us kind of vanilla, aggregate, mainstream type of stuff. But it's going to be about having strong opinions, having those in community, having those in, you know, safe learning circles where you can share and kind of just like lift up other people that you believe in. Thanks, Shane.
Red Fab.